Yeah.
It's fine. Be a fucking short king.
Yeah. But he wanted to be like Elvis. Elvis was his whole hero. So he dyed his hair black. He dyed his eyebrows black. He dyed his chest hair black. He took tanning pills, which was a thing. He took tanning pills by the handful and just laid out in the sun as much as possible. He would put white lipstick on his lips. He would sleep at night with a nose clip. What are the clips I'm thinking about? But he would,
like
laundry,
like a clothespin.
Clothespin,
kind of. Yeah.
He would put that on his lips to make them pout, and he would walk around pouting. And then he thought it would make him look tough if he had a beauty mark, which got bigger and bigger every time.
Oh no!
He also put on pancake makeup. You know, like you could see that line where he has the right. He did that.
Oh my God.
And wow. He
really
also, Sonia.
Yeah.
He put on a tape between the bridge on his nose and it was flesh colored, and he did that to make it look like he was just in a fight.
What the fuck? He had a really fucked up self-image.
No, there's definitely some body dysmorphia going on there. Like that's like Michael Jackson level of like, I look great. What are you talking about? This is normal.
Yeah, I'm totally normal. This is totally fine.
Why are you making fun of me? Smitty gets kicked out of high school. He doesn't feel like getting a job. He's certainly not going to go to school. He gets a series of girlfriends. He woos them, and then he tries to get them. His whole thing is like he's going to have them get a job. He would get a joint account with them, and they would put money in the joint account, and he would take all that money out. And a couple of girls fell for this, but most of them were like, nope.
And they're like, no dice, my short king.
Yes,
I'm out of here. No. Oh my God. This guy's like an original Tinder swindler.
He is a Tinder swindler. He's also strutting around up and down the strip. There was a song that was called The Pied Piper, and it's a pop song. It's I'm the Pied Piper. It's just the Life magazine article included some lyrics and called him the Pied Piper and make it sound like it was really evil. It's not a very evil name for somebody, I think.
No. Also, I just love the image of him walking around with his tin can boots. Like,
he looked ridiculous. And then people thought he had wooden feet. People thought that he was... They didn't know his... Oh, and another thing he used to do, Sonia, is he was obsessed with Elvis, and Elvis could play the guitar, so he pretended he could play the guitar. And what he would do, he would have people over, he would hide a record player, and then come out on stage and pretend to sing and play guitar.
People must have been like, what the fuck am I seeing? All right, let's paint the picture here. He's got like tin cans in his boots, so he's like, now I'm going to play the guitar. He's clearly lip syncing.
Yes.
He's like Milli Vanilli-ing that shit. And everyone is probably like, we know when we hear live music, our ears work. We can tell that this is a record. And he's like, I'm killing it. I'm living my best life. Yeah. And he's got a huge fake birthmark. It's probably like the size of a fucking fist at this point. I'm killing it.
The birthmark got bigger and bigger. The pancake makeup got thicker and thicker. It would smear on his food, like it would fall off of his face. But here's the thing. He bought the beer and he had a house. So the teenagers were like, he's cool, like Wooderson. I would have thought he was cool when I was 16. Nobody paid attention to me when I was 16. No 16-year-old paid attention to me when I was 16.
This is true.
Right?
This is true. Actually, you would appreciate any kind of attention. And also, you'll put up with a lot when you're underage to get your hands on booze.
And some weed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been in so many homes or in conversations with really boring people on stinky couches because that's where it was, you know?
Correct.
And he had a lot of girlfriends. He had a lot of female admirers. Once again, he had his own place. That's always something way more. It's better than the backseat of a car.
Fact.
Right. He did have some friends. He had a friend named John Saunders. He had a friend named Richie Bruns. These are people we'll be talking about. And there's Mary French. And Mary French is described in the Life magazine article as frumpy.
Oh, cool. I like where this is going.
with not much of a body.
Nice.
Nice job, Life magazine. My favorite is in the Once Upon a Time show where somebody said, how did they put it? Basically, she was really dumb. Just would fall for anything. Smitty is how everybody called him, Smitty. Smitty was getting bored because he's just driving around. There's no internet. There are no video games. There's nothing to occupy this man's time. He's a huge loser. His money's going to start running out. His parents are starting to run out of money. He's getting older, and he's hanging out with teenagers who, like, as they get older, they realize what a loser he is. And he decides, you know what would be cool? I want to kill a girl. I want to murder someone.
That'll do it.
And John Saunders and Mary French were like, okay, we'll help you.
What the fuck?
There's a girl named Aileen Rowe. She's 15 years old. And if you see the pictures of her, she's cute as a button. She had just moved to Tucson with her mom. Her mom just got divorced and had custody. And her mom worked the night shift at the hospital. Back then, this is what people did. You let your kids, you can't afford a sitter. She didn't know anybody.
Right. She's working nights, and she's like, you go to bed.
Yeah. Just lock the doors.
Yep.
Go to bed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And by the time you wake up, I'll be here and I'll make you breakfast, and I'll take you to school, and then I'll take a nap. Aileen was very smart. She wanted to go to college. This is a thing that happens. I know it happened to me, but she was 15. She made friends with some people who were kind of rough. And I was a really good kid. I was a very good kid, but I still knew the burnouts and the older people that shouldn't have been hanging around me.
Yeah, I was one of those kids that was super naive and like nice to everybody, but I also would figure out pretty quickly when I was out of my league or over my head, and I would just kind of back out of the room and walk home.
Yeah,
from wherever I was, because I was just a nice kid. I was.
Well, yeah. And we're also women. We're raised to be polite. We're raised to be nice. The worst thing you could be is a bitch. The worst thing you could be, we'll get to that story.
Yeah.
She becomes friends with Mary French, sneak cigarettes and talk about boys. Smitty would come over and hang out sometimes with his face of makeup and his boots and everything.
And his tin can boots.
His tin can boots. Aileen, who's being a very good, nice person, is like, her mother says, that guy's a creep. You got to get away from him. Don't hang around that guy. And Aileen's like, yeah, he creeps me out too, Mom. But I think he's actually really nice deep down. He could be nice sometimes. It's just.
Yeah. And she just wants to make friends. She's new in town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He decided she was one of the girls he wanted to kill.
So fucking awful.
Mary befriended a bunch of girls in town. Aileen, it took a few times. They asked her out a few times and she said no. And then one night, it was very, very hot. And it was so hot that she would sleep in her bathing suit. And it was a hot night. And they were like, hey, we know somebody with a pool. We're going to sneak out and go into the pool, that's all it would take for me. Like, okay. So it's midnight. She opens the window and she joins them. She disappears. And her mother goes to the police and says, something happened to my daughter because she's a good kid. She's never a problem. And she's been gone. And they're like, let's wait a week and see. She's probably just a runaway. They interview every kid in town. And every kid in town's like, I don't know. Never heard of it. Nope.
Yeah.
Aileen's mother actually hires her own detective to try to find her kid. It's that bad. This goes on for about a year. And they don't find her. And her poor mother is right. This is when Smitty meets a girl named Gretchen Fritz. Gretchen is 17. She's also a rich kid and a wild card. She's been kicked out of her private school, and people love to talk about her. She's some hellion. Maybe she was, but I always kind of think she's a teenager.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
But she liked sex, and she liked boys.
How dare her?
Exactly. And she scared all the girls. And she starts dating Smitty. And these are two people that just bring out the worst in each other. They're both jealous. They're both hotheads. They get in physical fights. They throw things at each other. He tells her that he killed somebody before to scare her, and it doesn't scare her. She steals his diary where he wrote out exactly what he did to Aileen. He also bragged about killing somebody else, but they think that's just a lie. He was just that he went to San Diego and he killed a couple of girls. But Gretchen and him are having, they're back and forth and back and forth. And this is when he becomes friends with a guy named Richard Bruns. Richard follows him everywhere he goes because this guy always has chicks around him, and he gets his leftovers. When he's through with a girl, Richie goes after them, and then Richie becomes obsessed with a girl named Kathy, who goes out with him for a few times, and then she's like, yeah, whatever. He's in the friend zone. Bless you.
Thank you. I'm allergic to this.
Yes, I know. True story. True story.
True story.
One time, Richie and Smitty are having a conversation at his house. And Smitty's admitting to him, I've killed a girl. She's in the desert. I want to kill another one. Will you join me? And he said to him, Richie says, well, dude, don't you have a conscience? How can you do something like that? Don't you feel bad about it? And I'll say this really quick. Basically, Smitty grabbed a cat by the tail and swung it around and said, why should I feel bad about anything?
What a fucking monster.
Yeah, and that's one of the tropes of a psychopath is that they hurt animals.
By the way, I'm not dismissing he murders humans and then he hurts a cat. And I'm like, how dare him? He's a monster already. I'm just saying, this is what monsters do.
They hurt the defenseless.
Yes.
He has a hair up his ass about Gretchen because Gretchen, every time they fight, it escalates. Every time she says, I'm going to tell people. Apparently, she's a drinker. And she starts telling people. So other people knew that he's the one that killed Aileen, but no one tells the cops.
Do they not believe it? Or they do believe it, but they're just...
What are you going to do about it? I guess, and as a teenager, he was considered cool at the time. And nobody wanted to mess with the cool guy. And also, he was dangerous. This is the guy who killed a cat. This is a guy who got in fights all the time. He was little, but he was, always in fights.
Yeah.
They didn't want to mess with him, and they didn't want to mess with Gretchen. Gretchen was scary too. So people kept their mouths shut. One night, Gretchen, her little sister, Wendy, who was 13, and Gretchen was 17, they go to the movies. They say an Elvis movie that I never heard of, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it, but you can look it up. It's 1965. She hears that Smitty's having a party at his house. So after the movie, she takes her younger sister to Smitty's house. People leave the party. It's just Wendy and her sister and this guy. Gretchen and Smitty have a huge fight. Poor Wendy was just there.
Yeah.
She was just there with her sister that she really loved. He kills Gretchen. He strangles her with a guitar string.
Jesus.
Slowly. He finds Wendy, who was hiding, and he kills her.
Jesus.
That's awful. He has Richie come over and says, you need to help me bury the bodies. And Richie does it.
Jesus.
He helps his friend out.
That's awful.
They bury the bodies in the desert. Once again, the cops are like, they're just runaways. Smitty calls and says, I hear they went to Mexico with some guy. And so the cops think that they're in Mexico. This 17 and 13-year-old just on their own. Yeah.
Sure.
The parents call and they're just told, we're going to talk to all the students, but nobody will say anything.
Right.
There turns out there's a mafia in Tucson. It's this family. They have an outpost in New York. Do you remember the Donnie Brasco, that movie?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that family.
Oh,
they had an outpost in Tucson. And somehow Gretchen and Wendy's father knew the guy. He was a heart surgeon. I don't know why he knew them, but he knew them. And they took Smitty and Richie aside and said, we hear you guys know something. She was last seen with you both. What's going on? And they realized this is the mob. They're terrified.
Yeah.
Smitty takes off for San Diego. Richie calls the FBI and says, the mafia just scared me. And they said, well, you better get out of town too. Doesn't tell him about the killing. So he goes to his grandmother's house in Ohio, and he's obsessing about Kathy. Kathy. He's going to get Kathy. He's going to come back and get Kathy. He dreams about this. He sends love poems to Kathy. He calls her all the time. Her father's like, leave her the fuck alone, you loser. This is not happening.
And Kathy's all, ack.
She gets a new boyfriend named Irving.